All right, we are live once again. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Happy Saturday. Happy October. First weekend in October 2025. It's good to see everybody here today, and I see everybody's joining us now. As a reminder, you guys, we are here to solve all the world's problems today. So I hope you guys are ready. I have a special guest with me today, but place your questions in the chat. I love to hear your questions. We'll try to get to as many of those questions as possible. As we're talking here, feel free to just type in those questions and also put in there, let me know where you're logging in from. I love seeing and hearing all the beautiful places that you guys are joining me from. I know some of you are all different parts of the world. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be joining us from today. I'm excited to be with you guys today. I have a special guest with me today, and I haven't talked to him in a while, and so I'm excited about picking his brain and getting some great wisdom and insight from all of his experience. But before I give away too much, let's bring him on. Let's let him introduce himself to everyone. I know he can do a better job than I can. So let me just see if he's here. There he is. Hi, Craig. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Jeremy?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Where are you joining us today?
I'm currently coming to you live from Los Angeles, California.
Nice. How's LA today?
It's good. Looks like it's going to be a beautiful day. So I'm excited to get out and enjoy it later.
Well, thank you for joining us this morning. Hopefully you've had your coffee and you're ready to help us solve all the world's problems today.
I am indeed.
If you don't mind introducing yourself to everybody who's on here who maybe don't know who you are, let us know who you are and what you do.
Great. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Craig Holzberg. I am the owner of Avalon Artists Group. We are a full-service nationwide talent agency representing actors of all ages and categories for film, TV, theater, commercials, voiceovers, industrials, and hosting. Our main offices are in New York and Los Angeles, but we also have satellite offices in Chicago, Miami, and Atlanta. So we do cover the entire country. I am a truly bi-coastal agent. I split my time between New York and LA. But one of the unique things about my agency is we work as a team. So I have a team in my New York office and a team in my LA office, because I firmly believe that it's better to have several sets of eyes and ears looking out for your career as opposed to just one set of eyes and ears. So we do work in tandem with each other. We all submit, we all push, we all negotiate deals. So it's one of the great things about the agency. I myself started out as an actor when I was 6 years old. I grew up in Denver, Colorado, and was very fortunate that my parents were involved in the arts. And also I lived about 10 minutes from one of the top regional theaters in the country at the time. So that's sort of how I got interested in it. And one day my mom dropped me off at Children's Theater and said, try this and see if that keeps you occupied. I auditioned for the first play that I auditioned for, I booked. And so the rest was history. And I acted all through my primary school years, my junior high school and high school years, did all my school plays and musicals, sang in my junior high school choir, sang in my high school choir. And a fun fact I like to share about myself is long before anybody knew who Ryan Murphy was, I was in a group just like Glee when I was in high school. So
Nice.
yeah, that was fun. And when I was about 12 years old, I told my parents I was going to move to LA to be an actor. They said, great, you can do whatever you'd like as soon as you graduate business school. So I went to business school and graduated in 4 years with 2 degrees. 3 days after graduation, drove my car from Boulder, Colorado to Los Angeles to pursue my career as an actor. Did it for a short time before deciding it really wasn't what I wanted to do. So then I embarked on a 20-year career in the fashion industry. That's what moved me to New York. And then after 20 years in the industry there, I transitioned back into the entertainment industry. 26 years ago, I started my career as an agent with another agency in New York. Worked for that agency for about 5.5 years before deciding I wanted to get back to LA as my home base and create the perfect career, which was to have a bi-coastal agency where I could go back and forth between what I think are the 2 greatest American cities in the country. And so in 2005, 23 years ago, I opened up my own agency, and that brings us to where we are today.
Nice. I love it. So bi-coastal, obviously LA and New York, I agree with you, the two greatest cities. What I love, I used to be bi-coastal as well. I am no longer. I used to run and operate photography studios in both locations. So I used to spend about half my year in LA, half my year in New York. About every 6 weeks, I was back and forth. And people always ask, what's your favorite of the two cities? And they're just so different. They're like the yin and the yang of of cities. And I love so much about each one that I just can't place my finger. In fact, my two favorite baseball teams, the Dodgers and the Yankees, are, of course, I can be a fan of both because they're on two different leagues. So the only time it really matters is when they're in the World Series together. And even then, it's just a win-win because I don't really care at that point who wins. So, well, thank you for joining us, Craig. I appreciate it. So you started off as an actor, and you had this passion. Did mom see this passion in you, or what made her decide to drop you off at the theater?
Yeah, I think that really the motivation was most likely what could she figure out to do to keep me occupied and get me out of the house so I wasn't driving her crazy, because I was a very active child. And I just think that I was always kind of a ham, and I was very outgoing child and loved being around people. I was the kind of kid that would walk up and talk to strangers, and which I'm sure, back then 100 years ago, I don't think parents had such concerns about that. Today, I think there would be a little bit more concerned about, talking to strangers. But yeah, I think it's just a natural gift of being able to talk to people and, being very outgoing and interested in, I was trying to think, I always try to remember which it was, but I think the first movie musical that my mom took me to was when I was 3 years old. And I can't remember if it was The Sound of Music or Mary Poppins. I don't remember which movie came out first, but so I have a very vivid memory of seeing those musicals as a child and being like, wow, that's incredible. And I was also very fortunate that my parents had season tickets to the Broadway theater house in Colorado, so I got to go to musicals when I was a kid. And I just think it was just a natural transition of something that she probably, she loved musicals, so that's how she sort of instilled it in me.
Nice. And I know, like, back then, obviously there wasn't YouTube and all these different mediums for you to create your own content. So she just knew you liked to perform or be in front of people, and just decided, let's give this a shot and see if it fits.
Yeah, good. I believe that's exactly what happened.
So you had this dream, and obviously you said you were a teenager at the time, with this dream of moving to LA and being an actor. And your parents said, well, first you have to, finish college. But that dream stuck with you. You said 4 days after you graduated from college, you were driving out to LA.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, unfortunately, the business school that I went to was very, very rigorous. It was a very challenging program and one of the top business schools in the country. So I had thought that I might be able to major in business and minor in theater, but there unfortunately wasn't any time for theater when I was in college. If I was going to graduate in 4 years, I had to focus primarily on my business career. So that's what I did. So I sort of took a break from performing between high school and college, and then came out to LA after I graduated college.
So this dream was still burning inside of you. You had to focus for 4 years. Were you thinking in the back of your head, man, I can't wait till this is over. I really just can't wait to get to LA, or what was happening?
I mean, I was definitely excited about, I knew, I was one of those kids that, always had a plan and, was very organized and all of that. So, I knew that's what was going to happen. So I just sort of had to focus. I wanted to focus on graduating and doing well in business school. And, the time flies. 4 years goes by much quicker than anybody can anticipate. So,
Right.
It got there when it did. And I got to LA as soon as I could and began to pursue my dream at that point.
I love it. So you had this plan and you knew it was going to happen no matter what. And you just had to go through a couple steps to get there. So
exactly.
Well,
right.
with that, I interview a lot of different people, industry professionals during these weekend interviews. And I love it because everybody starts off in this industry pursuing one thing, and then they end up moving and doing other things. I don't think I've talked to one person yet, any of the agents or managers I've interviewed, none of them have ever just decided, hey, I want to become an agent, or I want to become a manager. That's never been the case. Everybody started off doing something else and then happened to find, being an agent or working for an agent and decided that was the right choice for them. So same with your story. Obviously, you were passionate about being an actor, but I'm sure that being an actor has helped with your career as an agent.
Absolutely. So, if you had asked me 26 years ago if I wanted to be an agent, I would have told you were crazy. And I also think that if you had asked me, obviously knew what an agent was when I was young because I had an agent when I was acting in Colorado. So I knew what agents did, but it was just never anything. I always knew that I wanted to be either on stage or in front of the camera. So it never occurred to me to have any interest in agenting. But, and to answer your question, absolutely. Having been an actor, it gives me the amazing tools to be able to be a great agent because I understand the mind of an actor. I can put myself in their shoes. So I understand the psyche of an actor and the emotional and irrational, all of things that go into performers. But, I truly believe that we all go down the path we're supposed to go down at the time we're supposed to go down it. So this was definitely always in my future. I just didn't know it. And I think that's the same for a lot of people, but I do think what's unique and similar about performers is that I think we all know when we have that first experience of performing, sort of when the bug bites, we all know that like this is something that we relate to and that energizes us and excites us and that we're passionate about. And you have to be passionate about it. Obviously, it's probably one of the most challenging careers in the world because of what we deal with. But yeah, I just think that I was always meant to be here. I just had to do a lot of other things to get there. I think the path, everything we do in life leads us to the path or leads us down the path and in the direction that we're supposed to go.
I love that. Now, do you ever see breakdowns come across your desk that you think you're perfect for and you think in the back of your head, maybe I should submit myself to this breakdown?
So the answer to the first part of that question is absolutely. I see a lot of roles that I could certainly play, but I don't have any desire. My interest always lied more so in live theater and being on stage than being on camera. I mean, I did that on camera work. I did a lot of commercial work when I was younger. But being on stage is what was thrilling for me. There's no substitute for that immediate gratification of people showing appreciation for what you do. You don't get that when you film a commercial or you do a TV show or a movie, unless you win an award. I mean, certainly, when you're in a movie theater and you see a great movie with a great performance and people applaud at the end, that's great, but the actors don't hear that. They don't get that satisfaction. So for me, it was always stage is what really energized me. And I was also a singer and all of those things. So, but yeah, I think that, it's something that I think that performers share that is just, I'm sure people who decide they want to be doctors or lawyers or, chemical engineers have that same passion, but I think it's a little bit different for performers.
Right. So I heard that some actors like to sneak into the theater with their movie playing. So they do get a little bit of that gratification of hearing people's reactions, but it's not the same.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's interesting. Yeah. I mean, I guess they might, but I think that they're just setting themselves up to be disappointed if nobody responds at the end, because it's not a normal thing to be clapping at the end of a movie,
Right.
But it does happen.
Well, I talked with an agent, somebody you probably know pretty well, Sean Brogan from the Brogan Agency, a couple of weeks ago. And we talk about different subjects. And during these sessions, what I like to do afterwards is I like to take little clips. And again, I try to educate and inform and inspire people as much as possible. So I reposted a little clip. So we did a session 2 weeks ago. I posted this clip. I asked her the question, what are some of the secrets to your success as an agency? And she said, I probably shouldn't tell you this or share this with you, and she went on to share this. Well, it hit a little bit of a nerve. I had this 30-second clip that I posted. I thought it was a great answer, very inspiring, but I've gotten the most response from this clip than any others that I've posted. And I wanted to talk to you about this. What she mentioned is that her secret to success is she requires all of her clients, whenever they have an audition, she has a 48-hour rule. And she went on to explain the reason for that. So when the audition comes in, she requires her clients to record that self-tape and submit it within 48 hours. And she's said through her experience that she's had times if she can turn it in within 48 hours, she sees that she has a better opportunity for success because the early bird gets the worm, so to speak. And we talked about why that was with casting and how the casting process works and how sometimes casting will select somebody early and then no longer continue the casting. Have you experienced this with all of your years in history of being an agent? Have you experienced a casting that gave you a timeline and then you went to maybe submit the last minute and it wasn't available anymore? Has that ever happened?
No. So if you know, and I know Sean very well, and we also encourage our clients to get their tapes in as soon as possible. We also give them as much time as possible to prepare. We want them to have the most time to prepare, but we're very clear with our clients that, you know, first in, first watched. Especially with self tapes, and that the sooner they get the tape in, you know, when we get a tape in, we watch it to make sure it's perfect. And if it's perfect, we immediately send it off. So if we send, you know, for instance, on Friday, if we sent out, when we sent out auditions that were due, let's say Wednesday of this coming week, you know, if somebody sends in their tape Sunday, I'm going to watch it Sunday. If it's perfect, I'm going to send it to the casting director. So I don't know what the casting director's timeline is. You know, for the most part, we do know that they watch them as they come in. And so, and the reason that I know that it's always best to get your tape in as soon as possible is because I have had on 2 occasions a situation where tapes were due, again, we'll use Wednesday. Let's say tapes were due on Wednesday and a client got a tape in on Sunday, and Monday night I had an offer for that client for that role. And the tapes, all the other tapes were not yet due, meaning the cast director was still accepting tapes. Obviously for backup reasons, there's a reason that they would do that, obviously. But so I've never had a situation where a casting director stopped taking tapes when they've given out a deadline. I mean, they're gonna allow the actors that time. But I have had on 2 occasions actors book a job before the tapes were all due.
Right. And so she explained the same thing. You know, the quicker you can get it in, the better opportunity you have. Because if that casting director decides they like you, they don't have to watch the rest of the tapes. Like you said, they might accept tapes for backup. You know, the person that they selected might not be the director's choice, right? But can we explain a little bit about casting? Casting directors, their job is to find the right person, but they don't really make the ultimate decision, right? They usually have to filter it through somebody else.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, what a casting director does is when they've compiled or watched all of the tapes for a specific role, they then make their selects of who they're going to send to their producers and director, and then that's how the final decision process is made. Right.
And so they have their favorites, their selects, however many that is. I mean, it could be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would use the word favorite. I think I would use the word of the tapes they've seen, they're going to send the ones they feel are the best representation of what their team is looking for. I'm not going to say that personal opinion doesn't factor into it. I'm sure it does, because that's the job of a casting director. That's their job to determine who they think are the best options from the people that they've selected to audition for a specific role. But you know, they're gonna choose the ones that they think are the best representation. Obviously, they have conversations with their producers and their directors. They know what they're looking for. And in some cases, you know, I've heard stories, I've sat on panels with cast directors before where they've said, you know, we sent in 25 tapes that we thought were great, and the director didn't like any of them, so we had to start over. So, you know, and they did start over. So, but that's not a reflection on the casting director or their taste. That's just that's a reflection on what the director is looking for.
Right. And so just to make it clear too, people need to understand that casting, what their job, once their job's done, they usually will go on to another job. They look for that next project to cast for.
Correct.
So speed is always of the essence. If they can find somebody within a day after starting their job, well, they've completed the job. If the director's happy, everybody's happy. The director's happy after a day because it's saving them time. They don't have to look for that actor anymore. They can move on to other various, parts of the project that they're working on. There's a million parts of every project, right?
Correct.
And so the quicker the better. Speed is always the essential factor in it. And never wait until that last minute to turn the tape. And I found it interesting because we were discussing kind of a similar topic, but I guess we didn't make it clear enough to people that casting's job is to find the right person. And if they find that person on day 2 of a 2-week casting, like you mentioned, they're going to continue to accept tapes, but they may not even look at the rest of those tapes. If the director says, yes, this is the person we want, and signs off on it, they may not have to go and look at the other 200 tapes that they've received because they've already found the guy they hope will be the one for this part.
Yeah, I mean, my guess is that, and the cast directors I know all do this. My guess is they're still going to watch all the tapes they've requested, because then it gives them, especially if it might be an actor that the cast director doesn't know well, they're going to want to see what kind of work that actor's done so that they can keep them in mind for other projects that they're casting. So I have to believe, I truly believe that the process works, and that cast directors, if they put out 35 or 40 requests for a self-tape for one role, and within the first day they get 10 and they think all 10 are great, and they send those 10 to the producer and the director, and the producers, the directors go, that's our actor, then then an offer is going to go out. But like I said, they want to have a backup in case the actor that they've chosen, something, the deal doesn't go through or whatever. And in most cases it's going to, but I trust the process that the cast director is going to still take the time to watch those self tapes of the actors they selected to audition, and to so that they can keep them in mind for future opportunities.
Right, because that's what they're looking at as well. Is it not just that project, but what future projects they'll have that this person might be perfect for.
Absolutely.
What are some of you said you watch all the tapes that come through from submissions from your clients. What are some of the errors you've seen before that you've made them retape? What are some of the most common errors?
The thing that we're looking for, obviously, is we want to make sure that the lighting is correct, that the sound is correct, that the framing is correct, but more importantly, that they're making choices. I mean, that's what separates every actor's audition from the other actors auditioning for those roles, is the choices that they make. So we want to make sure that our actors are making solid, strong choices. And if they're sending in 2 takes or 3 takes of a scene, we want to make sure that we're seeing something different in each take, that they're able to show the casting director that they have range. I mean, that's important. That's one of the challenges. There are a lot of positives to actors self-taping now for film and TV auditions, but the downside is they don't have that opportunity to be in the room with the casting director who can give them immediate feedback and redirect them. Right. Occasionally when we send in a self-tape, and very rarely, will a cast director write back and say, this is great, we'd like them to redo it with these notes. I mean, that happens 1 in 100 times, if that many. Right. So that's why when sending in a self-tape, it's got to be perfect. You got to make bold choices, strong choices. And if you're doing it more than once, you have to make sure that those takes are completely different.
And when a casting director does send those back, it's almost a good sign, isn't it?
It is a great sign. Because if that means they see something in the actor that interests them, and they see potential, so they want to give them the opportunity to, I don't want to say fix something, but take a note that they know that the director would be looking for that may not be apparent in their first take.
Right. What are some of the worst self-tapes that you've seen where maybe something happened, the actor didn't catch it? I mean, the world of self-tape is...
It's so funny that you asked this. This happens all too frequently. And there's not the worst. I mean, I pride myself on representing actors that are professional and well-trained and know what they're doing. However, what never ceases to amaze me is when actors don't watch their tape before they send it to us. So, they mess up the first couple of lines and they use couple select expletives and on, the curse on camera and say, oh, blank, I can't believe I messed up. Let's start again. And they send that to us. Well, and this is the danger of actors not watching their own self tapes for things like that, blips like that, or maybe their head got caught off, or the sound cut off, or the lighting wasn't great, or there was too long of a pause, or their reader said something off camera that we could hear that we shouldn't have heard. All these things is that and I don't understand this, but some agents and managers tell their actors, they give them the opportunity to just send their tape directly through EcoCast to the casting director without watching it. And if they haven't watched it and caught those mistakes, that reflects pretty badly on the agent and the actor, because the cast director is going to realize, oh, nobody watched this tape before they sent it to us. So right. I watch every single tape before I send it to a casting director to make sure it's perfect. So actors, watch your self tapes before you send them. If you have representation, before you send it to your agent or manager. And if you don't have representation, certainly make sure you've watched your tape before you send it off to a casting director.
And you're going to learn so much from watching yourself anyways. You're going to learn the little things that you do that you don't realize you're doing.
Yep.
And well, I love that. I want to shift gears a little bit. I want to ask you about this, and not to get into politics, because honestly, I don't like politics. I'm not a big fan of politics or politicians themselves. But I know that just recently this week, Trump has announced something about tariffs on foreign movies. And I wanted just to pick your brain about that. I have my own opinion about that. I think, well, I don't know really what that looks like. I've never heard of this in my life before, but have you given much thought to this, or do you think this is good for the U.S. acting world?
Well, I don't think it's good to ever place restrictions or limitations on anything that will affect someone's business or someone's personal well-being. So, not to speak to why this administration makes decisions like that in any way, shape, or form, but anything that is done that puts a damper on or harms a process that's been working for a long time is obviously going to have negative impact. I mean, it's right. I'm not well versed enough in how tariff. I mean, I know what a tariff is and I know how it works and all of those things, but I'm not an analyst to know what the financial impact would be on something like that. But I got to imagine it would be pretty big.
Right. So when I saw this announcement this week, I thought, well, maybe this might bring more projects into the U.S. for mm-hmm. filming. Mm-hmm. And I think that's maybe the reason behind it. Again, I can't speak for anything that they do, but you know how certain states, they'll open up tax incentives for production. So mm-hmm. let's just say, for example, New Mexico decides, hey, we want to have some more projects filmed here. So let's give a tax incentive for those productions to come to New Mexico. So they announced that they're going to do this tax incentive. These productions that are currently looking for places to film realize, hey, New Mexico might be a beautiful place for our set. Let's look into this. And because they've given this tax incentive, we're now doing production in New Mexico. Florida, a lot of states do this. I know Florida did it a while back, and then that incentive expired. And there was a show I was watching on Netflix that was filmed in Florida, in Key West area. I forget the name of that show. It was pretty popular maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And
I know what you're talking about, and I can see the lead actress. She's blonde.
Yeah, what is the name of that show?
Was she like an evangelist or something? I can't. Oh God.
Yeah,
I know exactly what you're talking about, but I cannot think of the name of it.
It went like 3 seasons, and then it just abruptly ended. And the reason it abruptly ended is because the tax incentive ended. And so they basically decided it wasn't beneficial for them to continue filming in that area. And so that's what I was thinking about this tariff. Well, maybe it's just a blanketed way, like almost like a tax incentive for productions to say, hey, let's look at the US for filming. But then I got to really think about how do you tariff a foreign film coming into the US? I don't understand how that even works.
Yeah,
I wanted to get your opinion because I thought maybe you'd have more insight than I do.
yeah, I don't, unfortunately, but like I said, putting extra roadblocks in front of anybody or anything is, I don't know if that's a good thing. But listen, if it created more jobs in America, if it created more opportunity for businesses to flourish, craft services and cameramen and makeup artists and hairstylists and wardrobers and all those kinds of things, then it could be a good thing.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. So,
we will indeed.
Well, switching topics now on aspiring actors, people who are sitting out there and wanting to, get representation from someone like yourself someday and hoping to do that. What do you think is the best key element that they can start working on today? Let's say they're sitting at home and maybe located in a smaller town where they don't have a lot of opportunity. What should they work on? How should they get the opportunity to maybe perhaps work with a great agency like yourself someday?
Yeah, it all starts with training. That's the most. It's no different than any other industry or profession. You can't become a doctor if you don't go to medical school. You can't become a lawyer if you don't go to law school. So it's important to get the best training as possible so that you are set up for success when you start auditioning. So it all starts there. There is natural talent, and there's a lot of people have a natural gift, and they still need to build upon that gift that they have, right? Whatever foundation, whether it's they were born with the gift, or they've done it for a long time and they've developed the skill set over years of working or training. It's all about the training, and a great actor never stops training, right? Even when they get to a certain level, they still, there are many, if not all, very famous actors that still work with their acting coach before they do before they shoot a film, or before they get on set for TV, or they get on a Broadway stage. So it really comes down to training and really continuing to build upon the foundation that they have. I mean, it's like everything else. Your house won't stand up if you don't have a solid foundation. It will fall down. Acting is exactly the same. You got to have a solid foundation, and also it gives the actor the confidence, right? When they are putting a self-tape together, or they do have the opportunity to have a live audition, or an EcoCast live, or a Zoom audition. If you feel confident in the work that in your training, in your foundation, then it's only going to come through in your in the actual work. So that's the most important thing is to train and to continue to hone whatever skills you already have, and to continue to build upon those skills.
Right. And that's the thing, is a lot of, I think, people out there don't realize that even professional actors, highly successful actors, still work with coaches on a weekly basis.
Absolutely.
And regardless of how successful they are, because like you mentioned, these high profile, let's say a doctor, somebody who's a lawyer, they want to, you look at those jobs as maybe high paying, high achieving jobs, but acting is the same way. You can be a highly paid actor, but still need that professional training, just like a sports athlete or anybody else.
Correct.
And do you tell your clients, do you make them continue to train, or do you encourage them, or how does that?
Yeah, absolutely. We absolutely encourage our clients that they should be training, and certainly when they have a major audition, and by major I mean if they're auditioning for a lead in a feature film, or they're auditioning for a Broadway show, or a series regular, or maybe even a recurring guest star, we encourage them again to make sure that they have the confidence. With self-tapes, it's a little bit different because, they can do it over and over again until they get the perfect take, but they still want to be prepared, right? How do you get the perfect take on a self-tape? Well, by being confident and being prepared. So yes, we do definitely encourage our clients to continue their training, and certainly to coach when they have a major audition.
And the great thing about today's world is you can find coaches anywhere in the world. wherever you're located, as long as you have a computer and internet connection, you
That's
can
correct.
work with some of the best coaches in the world. And that's the great thing. Whereas when you started years ago, I'm sure that wasn't the case. You had to
Nope.
physically in person.
No, I mean, there were acting coaches, but you had to physically go to your acting coach's studio or apartment or wherever they did their training.
Right. And so being in Denver at the time, you probably felt, oh, I get more opportunity if I'm in LA because I have greater access to better coaches.
Correct.
Yeah. Now, you work with Broadway theater actors as well as film and television. I had a friend, you may know her, Laura Kelly. She was the lead in Mary Poppins.
Yeah, Laura Michelle Kelly.
Yes, absolutely. So she was a friend of mine, and I worked with her a little bit. And I met her at the time when the show was ending, and she was transitioning back into film. She was working with a coach to do that. And what do you do with your actors who maybe want to transition from theater to film or vice versa?
Yeah, so we don't just represent actors who just do stage. Most of our stage actors also audition on a regular basis for film and television. So yeah, it just goes back to training and coaching. You know, I mean, a great actor is going to have great skills, right? And they're going to have those natural instincts. But auditioning for a Broadway show is very different than auditioning for a television show or for a movie, right? Because theater is big and broad, and you have to project, and things have to sometimes be a little bit not exaggerated, but you know, if you're going to be performing for 3,000 people in a theater, it's very different than when you're taping for a TV show or for a movie. So it's the technique, you know, on-camera technique is different than theater. But I stand behind a great actor can do both, just knowing how to sort of take it down, make it smaller, make it more intimate. You know, because I always tell my actors, when you're auditioning for film or TV, you're auditioning to be in a box, essentially, right? As opposed to being on a stage. So be cognizant of the fact that it needs to be more subtle, right? And more about what's going on in your face, as opposed to, because we can see that up close in a movie or on a TV program. Whereas opposed to being on stage, you know, if you know, someone's sitting in the balcony, they're not necessarily going to see Laura's face in Mary Poppins, right? As clearly as they would if they were sitting in the fifth row. So that's the difference. There's a definite difference technique to auditioning for film and TV than there is to be auditioning for stage.
And it goes beyond even just acting itself. I remember at the time I was running the New York City Marathon. And so I was training for it, and she was an avid runner as well. And the reason why she ran, she told me, she says, I'm not a fan of running, but that Broadway show is so physically challenging. She's running up and down stairs, and she's Mary Poppins, and she's singing and acting all at once, that she became a runner during her time on Broadway just to keep up the physical capability of performing night after night.
Yeah. 8 shows, you have to have amazing stamina to do 8 shows a week. You know, and there are days where you have to do 2 in a row. So yeah, absolutely. You have to be in great cardio health to be able to do that, because especially if you're a singer and a dancer, to be able to dance and sing at the same time and not be out of breath, if you're not in shape, you're going to be huffing and puffing, and people are not, they don't want to spend $500 to see somebody huffing and puffing, you know, on stage. It should feel effortless and seamless. Right.
Especially her, you know, that character itself, so magical. She had to seem like she was floating everywhere, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
As Mary Poppins. But yeah. And then she was telling me too, with her coaching, she was having to transition because she was only on Broadway for such a, you know, period of time, that going back into the box, like you say, on camera, she was working with her coaches trying to get back into that mindset of, okay, so now I'm going to be going to auditions for, you know, TV and film, and I need to get back into that, because that's her background. Obviously, she's transitioned; she's done both. But she was in that movie Sweeney Todd too. Yeah, she was there. So, what was maybe some of your most rewarding moments as an agent in this career that you've had with your own company?
You know, I mean, there's been so many. I have to say that one of the most rewarding things of what I do and what we do as agents is seeing all of our hard work and the hard work of our clients come to fruition when they start booking work. I mean, there is no better feeling than being able to pick up the phone or send an email to a client and say, congratulations, you booked the job. I mean, that's why we do what we do, right? I mean, actors want to book the work that they audition for, and we as their agents and supporters and champions want to be part of that success. So there's no, it's a rush every single time. Like the excitement never goes away to be able to call an actor or email an actor and say, congratulations, you booked it. Certainly when you get to call them for the very first time and they book their very first job, that's exciting. And then when you get to call them and tell them they booked what I consider to be that game changing, like when I'm trying to think, was Mary Poppins? Yes, I think Mary Poppins for Laura was before Fiddler on the Roof, because she was in the revival of Fiddler as well. So, I mean, I don't know if I ever asked Laura Michelle this question when I saw her, but I'm not sure what her first big job was. Whether I'm sure it was in the UK because she's British.
It was,
yeah. So I don't know. Do you know what her first West End show was?
No. So she was doing West End before she got Mary Poppins. So
I'm not sure
of course.
I knew people knew who she was over in the UK, but I mean, I'm sure when her agent called, her West End agent called, or her British agent called her for the very first time to tell her she had booked her very first West End show. I mean, that's game changing, right? That's what starts a career. The same thing when I call a client and tell them they've just booked their first Broadway show. That's just the beginning of many Broadway shows that they're going to be doing. So there's no substitute for the joy of being and the excitement and the elation of being able to make that phone call.
Right. I love that. And I love seeing clients on projects, no matter how big it is, how small it is, their first TV commercial, the first time you see it out in public, where you're watching TV and all of a sudden it pops on and I always message them.
I can remember going back to when I started my career as an agent, I got to call an actor and say, well, you just booked it. You're now going to be a corpse on Law and Order. And just the excitement of the fact they were just going to lie dead on an examination table, like that was exciting, and I get that because that's validation of all of the hard work and all of those thousands of auditions you had before you booked your very first job.
Yeah. A corpse on Law and Order.
Oh, yeah, that was a huge thing. I mean, it's not so much anymore, but originally, yeah, like every episode always had a dead body, and people were like, "I'll give my left arm to be a dead body on Law and Order." It's just like sort of a rite of passage, right? Yeah,
right.
We don't see a lot of breakdowns for corpses on Law and Order anymore.
Gone are those days.
Yeah, they have to use. They probably don't.
Right, they have such great mannequins and great,
I was going to say, yeah, they probably don't have to use a real human for that.
Okay, how long do I have to hold my breath while the camera's on?
Exactly. Yeah. Stay very still and don't breathe. Yeah.
With your career and working by Coastal, is it hard for you to find new talent? Are you so busy with your back and forth, or do you guys still bring on new clients as well?
Oh yeah, no, I mean there's never any lack of ability to find new talent. I'm a firm believer that as an agent, it's my job to always be looking for new talent. It's just a matter of whether or not that the person that we may have interested in fits into the roster at the time, right? No two actors are exactly the same. A lot of times actors will say, well, we can't represent you because we have someone exactly like you. Well, there's nobody exactly like anybody. And I mean, even like I represent a couple sets of identical twins, and even though they're identical twins, they have different personalities. They have they look exactly the same, but they don't act exactly the same, right? So right. It's a matter of making sure that when we're interested in a potential new client, that new client brings something to the table, whether it's special skills or sensibility or whatever, that separates them from the other clients that we have in their category. So if we're looking, if I'm looking for an actor, a Caucasian male, in your category, you're not exactly like anybody that I represent in your category, but are you similar in your acting style? Do you have similar special skills? Is there something that separates you that I can offer, that I could sell to a casting director, that the clients on my roster, I can't currently do that. So that's what we're looking for, because we don't want to be in a situation where we're working on a breakdown and we have 40 people that could all fit the breakdown. That if we have 40 people that can fit one breakdown, one role, then that's too many people in that category.
Right.
Because, we want to make sure that we're submitting our 4 or 5 top, right? Like if it's a co-star, we'll submit, if it's a co-star and they're looking for a male, 20 to 30 all ethnicities, well, of course we're going to submit more than 5 people, because we're going to submit our two or three top in each ethnic background, right? But if it's a guest star, and they're looking for someone like that, we're only going to submit, even if we have 4 or 5 of that's a perfect fit, then we'll submit. But most likely it's usually 2 or 3.
So when you do find somebody, or you're looking for somebody new, if somebody doesn't have experience, does that concern you? Or if they just have a great personality, like what are some of the attributes you're looking for in new clients?
Yeah. So I mean, again, it goes back to training. I mean, we don't, depending on the age of a new actor, certainly we go to all the college showcases and we look for new talent from all the graduating conservatories. We don't expect them to have professional experience because they've spent 4 years or 2 years training. Right. So it's a matter of what their skill set is and their confidence. And yes, personality and energy and all those things are important. But if an actor in your age category were to reach out to me and send me a headshot and resume or whatever, I'm going to absolutely expect there to be some training, not some training, but also some professional experience. And not whether that maybe they've done community theater, maybe they've done some student films or short films, or they've done some commercial work, whatever. But yeah, we do want them to have some experience. We would never put them in front of a casting director without proper training and some experience.
So you want them to have at least some on-camera experience or some stage experience, especially if they're older like myself. And so with somebody that's sitting out there today that's maybe my age, which is, I think, 28, if I remember. I don't remember. But no, if they're sitting out there and they don't have that experience yet, obviously start looking for local theaters in your area so that you can get that experience, or student film projects.
Absolutely. Unless you live in a very remote, town of 400 people where you're probably not going to have access to although you'd be surprised, an acting coach or something like that. Yeah. I mean, find community theater, find, training first, but then, if you're close to a major market, and most people are, there are universities all over the country that have acting and theater programs. And the acting program, if they have a directing or a writing program, those students have to produce films or projects in order to graduate, right? So, and they need actors to fill those slots where they're not paying anybody anything. They're just looking for people for experience. So there's always some availability somewhere. You just got to do your due diligence and, look into the resources that are close to home.
And they can only use their friends for so many roles. Correct. So with their student film, they have all their 5 friends in it, but they also need older actors or younger actors or different people to play different parts.
Correct.
So,
yeah.
Now, on the reverse side of this, what should an actor look for in an agent? I know that there's a lot of agents out there, a lot of great agencies, you guys being one of them, but what do you recommend when an actor is seeking an agent? Should they find just the first person that wants to work with them, or should they try to make sure that they're a good fit? Like, how do they decide?
Yeah, it's a very important decision, and one that should not be taken lightly. And so, I always tell actors, don't sign with an agent just to have an agent. Make sure you sign with the right agent. There are a lot of amazing agents and managers out there. Just do your research, do your due diligence, sit down with a list and say, okay, these are the things that I'm looking for in an agency and an agent. And then do your research and then reach out, actors have access to almost every major agency and management company out there. We have websites. You can go on IMDb Pro. All of those things that I'm sure that, that actors know about, and do their research, and then start reaching out and to the agencies and or management companies that they're interested in. And hopefully, one or a few of them will reach back out and say, hey, you look interesting. We'd love to set up a meeting to get to know you. And that's the most important thing. But learn about, if you are fortunate enough to get that meeting with an agency or a manager, do your homework before the meeting. Like, I'm always surprised when I sit down in a meeting and say, so great. So, tell us about yourself. And, the first red flag for me is if an actor can't talk about themselves, there's a problem, because actors usually love to talk about themselves. But also too, if we're, in that interview process, we're trying to get to know you. We've already seen something, that sparked our interest regarding your acting, but now it's an opportunity for us to get to know you as a human being and as a person. So, it's really important that you be yourself. Don't try to impress us. I'm not easily impressed. And I can certainly tell when somebody's trying to be something that they're not, or they're trying to impress me. Just relax. Be yourself, have fun, come prepared with questions, do research. I'm always impressed when actors say, so I know that, you started out as an actor and you worked in fashion for 20 years. And what made you decide to become an agent? That, again, do I like to talk about myself? Well, I don't mind it. I mean, I was an actor as well, but that's part of my job. I have to talk, all the time. I have to talk about my clients and that sort of thing. So, I'm always impressed when they've done their research and they know who I am and they know about my agency. And then there's an opportunity for us to get to know you and find out what makes you tick. What are your goals? I'm always also surprised too when we ask questions like, so, they'll say they want to do television. We're like, great. What are you watching on TV that you love right now that you think you could be a part of? Oh, I don't really watch a lot of television. Well, that's a red flag to me. If an actor wants to be on TV, but they don't watch television, how can you know what's being filmed in your market, B, what the culture of a show is, right? What if you're going to audition for Matlock, you better have watched Matlock to understand that the dialogue on that show is very fast paced, right? It was the same thing with the name Scandal, the Kerry Washington show. Same thing. If you watch that show, the dialogue was like surefire. It went back and forth very quickly. Well, if you're auditioning for one of those shows, you can't send in an audition tape where you're speaking very slowly, because that's not the culture of the show. That means you haven't done your homework. So it's really important that actors do their homework. And so if I ask that question and an actor can't quickly list 5 or 6 shows that are shot in New York or LA, depending on where they are, then that gives me pause that this actor doesn't really know much about the industry. And you have to be well educated. You have to know what's going on in your industry.
And so going back to the meeting with you want them to do homework and be prepared for you, but also moving forward for every project. I always encourage actors, every project, do your homework before you get.
If your agent or manager or a casting director sends you a self-tape for a show you have never watched, you better watch a couple episodes before you send in that self-tape.
Right. Yeah. It's just going to give you more knowledge of who you're working with and more knowledge.
And confidence. I go back and give you the confidence to know what you're doing.
Right.
You got to know what you're doing.
I love it. Well, I'm running close on time today. I don't want to keep you all day. I know that you have probably some great things happening this weekend. Any big plans this weekend?
Just seeing a lot of theater. I'm going to a show tonight and a show tomorrow night.
Nice.
Yeah.
So still passion for theater.
Yeah. It's honestly, I love film and TV, and film and TV is great. And obviously, actors who are series regulars on television and leads in major feature films make a lot more money than someone who's necessarily on a Broadway stage. But I love, again, it's the actor in me, the fact that I always loved being on stage. There's no replacement or no substitute for feeling that immediate rush and adrenaline of seeing a live performance. So yeah, I'm still a big theater fan.
Well, enjoy the theater. I appreciate you spending your morning with us on LA right now, and
always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I think we almost solved all the world's problems, but I don't think we got to quite all of them yet. But
yeah, there's probably a few more that we need to solve, but we can save that for the next one.
We'll save it.
Great.
Well, Craig, it's good seeing you. Hopefully I'll see you soon.
Thanks so much. Have a great weekend.
All right. Bye, everybody. Thank you.